Good afternoon to everybody. I hope that you have had a nice time during this lunch period of this day. We will now continue our meeting, and we stopped at 12:30 when the responses to the follow-up questions were being provided. And now we will continue with these responses. And the next item will be the responses under Cluster 2. Madam Head of the Delegation, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to everybody. We analyzed that actually there is only, now our understanding, one issue that remained from the first part of questions. So I would like to give floor to my colleagues to try to reply to the issue of education, or human rights education in relation to specific groups of like policemen and judges and so on.
Okay, thank you for the floor. As to the issue of the education on human rights of the police, judges and prosecutors, firstly, please let me state that before the start of their careers, the police have a 1-year legal training, which of course includes education on human rights, and the judges and prosecutors are required to have legal education, which of course includes extended human rights courses. After they start their careers, the education is continued at the Judicial Academy, which is a state body which performs these numerous courses and lectures on human rights, and also the fact that in the proceedings before the Constitutional Court, the argumentation must be based on human rights contributes to the fact that these professions include the human rights education into their, let's say, voluntary study. Thank you.
Well, okay. Thank you very much. Now I guess that we can proceed with the cluster 2, and I would like to ask my colleague, the representative from the Ministry of Labour and Social Affairs, to answer the bulk of these issues raised.
Thank you for the floor, and also I would like to thank the distinguished members of the committee for very concrete and focused questions, because this will allow me to be quite brief and I think to the point. I will start with a group of questions which aimed at the social security system or social protection system of the Czech Republic. The main issue is probably the impact of the austerity measures on the rights enshrined in the covenant. And to say it brief, the austerity measures had a minor impact on the aggregate data, such as the ratio of risk of poverty and social exclusion was the same in 2008 as well as in 2011, and rose only slightly in 2012. The ratio is 15.3% from 2008 and 2011, and in 2012 it was 15.4%. So the change in this aggregate indicator is very, very small. One of the questions was on the non-contributory benefit on the possible abuse and how the austerity measures were then. We made this system of, especially of one part of the non-contributory benefits of the state social support, more targeted. So we set some of the benefits became income tested, so they were not received automatically by all, but by the families who were under the threshold of the entitlement of the benefits. Another question was on the sickness benefit, that it was really cut down from 72% to 60% of the assessment base, but only beginning of the 30th day of sickness. That means in shorter sickness there was no change. Also, there were other measures which somehow compensated this move, because we have increased the reduction limits of the calculation of the benefit, so that a person with higher income got a higher benefit. And also one of the measures was also lowering of the sickness insurance contributions. So this was somehow balanced by this. And last question concerning the social benefits was extremely concrete. Was just whether the indexation of pensions will revert to the original. Yes, it will. So it will be 100% inflation and 1/3 of the real wage growth. If I'm not mistaken, I can go to another part, a group of questions which was related to employment. I will start with a question to the labor law and whether the greater flexibility of the labor relations brought about some positive change in face of the crisis. Let me say that there were no great changes to the employment protection legislation. There were some minor changes. They were aimed at greater flexibility, but the bulk of the commitments of the labor code has remained. And one flexible option was based on already existing, and it was so-called, from German Kurzarbeit, it was based on when a company had not orders and was about to limit or reduce its production. There could be an intervention that the workers would work part-time, and in the rest of the working time there will be training, and for the time of the training they will have received wage compensation, which was paid by the labor office. And it is difficult to estimate how much each such measure helped save jobs, because it's very difficult to calculate how much were not lost, but this was one of the main measures. Another question was related to the minimum wage. It is true that since 2007 the minimum wage had not been raised until last year, but even during the period 2007 and 2013. There were changes in the income tax, which meant that the net wage was increasing. And in 2013, first change was abolition of lower minimum wage for people with disabilities and young people after training. And in August 2013, the minimum wage was also raised, so from 8,000 crowns to 8,500. And the government plans to gradually increase the minimum wage to the limit of 40% of the average wage, of the general average wage. Also, I should add that the increase in minimum wage is discussed by the tripartite, with social partners. So the exact amount was agreement of all these three stakeholders. One was also quite focused questions concerning the counting or calculation of the working time. It was said that it's maybe difficult for a lawyer, but luckily I'm not a lawyer. So there are many exceptions, but for the calculation of the average working hours per week and for the overtime hours, there is 26 weeks of the reference period, which can be prolonged to 52 weeks, but only on the basis of collective agreement. And in general, the regulation of working time follows the EU Working Time Directive. One question was about whether there is a large increase in youth unemployment. That is true. That is of most concern for us and for the whole European Union, as probably aware. The European Union has taken initiative focused on youth and tackling their rising unemployment. And the Czech Republic also takes part in the initiative. So we prepared a set of measures with the Ministry of Education, which are based on avoiding the skills mismatch, to subsidize internships in companies, so that the young people get some practice, working experience to be better employable. Also, some targeted programs from the European Social Fund and other European funds will be used. Second question was on the group of women, older workers, female workers, but there the problem is of the older workers in general, both men and women, and it's one of the vulnerable groups recognized by the Labor Office. So many measures are targeted on that group or vulnerable groups in general. And one of the measures which is now underway to improve the situation of all vulnerable groups is to strengthen the capacity of the Labor Office of the Czech Republic to better implement the active labor policy, to work more individually with the clients of the Labor Office. And by the end of last year, there was an increase of the staff by 700 persons or 10 positions by later people, and other increase is envisaged in the program documents of the government. Just to say, the 700 is some 8% increase in the staff of the Labor Office. And another question was on the safety at work. Yes, first comment was that there is a large number of regulations, laws. That's absolutely true. I cannot enumerate all the regulations, but many are really technical, setting some quantitative limits or length of expositions to some adverse factors. And but the occupational safety and has quite a long tradition in the Czech Republic, and we have also a governmental council for the health and safety at work, which is also there is also strong consultations of the social partners. They are present in the governmental council, and also the labor code enshrines rights of the trade unions to be consulted on matters relating to occupational safety. The employer has many duties to inform the employees, either through the trade unions or some nominated representative for occupational safety especially. And also occupational safety is, of course, one of the main priorities of the labor inspection bodies. And because we have so many detailed regulations, it's also very easy to find out whether the occupational safety is being implemented well or not. And also we have a certificate which is called Safe Enterprise, which is awarded to the enterprises after they are truthfully checked by the labor inspectorate that it's really a safe enterprise, and then the certificate is also, there is some the awarding ceremony is also being publicized. So this is also part of the awareness raising. I will then give the floor to head of our delegation if she wants to add some to the cluster 2.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that on the cluster 2, I would like to mention, well, very briefly, some points related to the issue raised, which was the equal pay and for the work of equal value. First of all, I would like to say that this principle is respected in the Czech legislation. First of all, it is a principle that is also that is also a part of the European Union legislation, which is also binding for the Czech Republic. As regards the domestic legislation, the equal pay for the work of equal value is protected under the Charter of Fundamental Rights and Liberties, in particular by Article 28, which says that the employees has the right to fair remuneration for their work, which also, of course, includes the fairness in relation to any differences in remuneration between men and women. But on the other hand, I have to say that, of course, in the practice, it is a much more complex issue, because this, of course, relates closely to the phenomenon of the gender pay gap. We are pretty aware of existence of this phenomenon. We follow the development of the gender pay gap very closely. Actually, it is followed annually in a so-called report on the status of equality of men and women, which every year has a chapter or part. This is devoted to the development as regards the gender pay gap. The gender pay gap is monitored both by the Eurostat and as well as the Czech Statistical Office. The information latest, the news that I have, it is that the gender pay gap in the Czech Republic was 21.6%. And the information also says that there was a very slight improvement in the situation, but nothing really substantial. The issue of the gender pay gap is, of course, a very complex one. How is this possible that there is, well, so as to say, not really equal pay for equal work, and it is linked to many issues that were already partly mentioned, like, for instance, the distribution of the family care, the care for children within the families, say the availability of some facilities for children, and of course there is also the issue of gender stereotypes. I think that as regards the gender stereotypes, which may see women or the persons who are in a position that they care for somebody as somebody who is not, for instance, as capable of some effective work as other persons. In this regard, we understand that there is a need for more awareness raising, certain kind of a campaign to break these stereotypes, and we plan that there will be a big national campaign that would promote the equality between men and women, and this awareness raising campaign actually already was launched, and it will cover gender stereotypes as well as the domestic violence and the reconciliation between working life and family life. And as I said, it should be targeted to the general public. So I think that this is all I can say at this point to the issue of the gender pay gap and the equal pay for equal work. I think that we can perhaps return to the topic if the members of the committee find it necessary in the next cluster of issues. And as regards the next cluster of issues, which is cluster number 3, I think that the first.
May I just
yes,
propose that you
have a follow-up.
questions?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Now, thank you very much for the responses to this cluster. And just I'm opening the floor for the case. Mr. Sadi, the floor is yours.
I understand a follow-up on cluster 2, right? Okay. Now, if I understood the delegation correctly, I may have not. The impact of the austerity measures, I understood the delegation to say the impact has been minimal. But this judgment is based on figures of a macro level. Do you accept my proposition that this would not be sufficient to measure the impact on vulnerable groups of people, disadvantaged groups of people, on the unemployed, because this could all be hidden in the figures. I mean, you might have very good figures on the macro level, but it would not reflect the hardships that some groups of society would suffer because of the austerity. I don't know if I'm making my point clear enough, because you see, many countries on the macro level, they can make fantastic results, economic results, but then you have pockets of poverty and hardships and so on and so forth. This is one. On youth unemployment, the delegation said you have taken measures to combat youth employment. To what extent these measures have been effective? I mean, you said something about training the youth so they can be hired in certain professions, internships, and so on and so forth. Okay, this is all good and fine, but how effective have they been? Has the unemployment figure for the youth dropped? And again, I go back to the austerity impact. How did it impact the youth unemployment? And, of course, women's unemployment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sadi. Now I would like to ask Mr. Martynov to take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of follow-up questions on Article 7 from the second cluster. First of all, of course, I welcome the good news which was brought by the delegation about the recent rise in August 13 of the minimum wage from, I believe, from 8,000 to 8,500. So the question is, if we go back to, say, second half of 2013, after this increase, how the minimum wage of 8,500 compared to the minimum subsistence level for an individual after being frozen for six years' time? This is question number one. The second question is, we also commend the intentions of the government to bring the minimum wage to 40% of the average wage, but the target, the time target which you indicated, you said in the coming years, it's a little bit too vague. Does the government have a more specific time target for introduction of this 40% minimum wage? And finally, in the calculation of the minimum wage, do you proceed from the needs of an individual or a household, a family? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Martynov. Now, Madam Sheen, ask for the floor.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the answers. My very short follow-up questions would be, so in the Czech Republic, is there a system of comparison between different work, but with the same value? And regarding your effort to fight against gender stereotypes, so at the end of all this campaign or program, how much of the family responsibility is shared by men? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I would like to ask Madame Brash-Gomez, and then the next speaker will be Madame Kong. Madame Brash-Gomez.
Thank you, Chair. In addition to what my colleague Mr. Sadi just said on the aggregate calculations and then on the specific impact on particularly vulnerable groups, I would also like to know what is your understanding of the influence the austerity measures have on child poverty. This is an issue that has been of great concern in many European Union states. I don't know if that is the case with you or not. And in relation to the fact that the decrease in the benefits, for example, the sickness benefit, hasn't really had that much impact. Either your sickness benefits were very good, or else I fail to see how such a big cut did not have an impact on people's lives. In relation to the non-contributory system, if you allow me, I'll read to you just one paragraph from the European Trade Union Confederation, just to make clear to you why we are concerned in this reshift of the from the rights-based approach to the material needs approach, which could in fact damage the whole philosophy of a public social security system. And I'll just read out to you. Benefits for very low-income families with children are abolished without any compensation. Around a third of families who are currently entitled to this benefit have an income under the statutory minimum. They will have to be apply for a special need for material distress, which will only partially compensate them. The measure will lead to a considerable increase of poverty rates. Thank you, Chair. I think I've made my point.
Thank you very much. And now I would like to ask Madame Kong to take the floor.
谢谢主席。Thank you very much, Chair. My question has to do with migrant workers. Now, do these workers have the right to participate in a union? Particularly with regard to their housing issues, I think that these types of workers, these types of immigrants, are sometimes discriminated against because rent prices are very high. Secondly, with regard to the informal economy, could you give me more information on this? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't see any further requests for the floor. Madam Head of Delegation, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I have to say that these questions are not easy one. So, but maybe I can start by pointing to something that I already mentioned at the beginning of our conversation. I said that in the Czech Republic we do have bodies which represent the vulnerable groups, and these advisory bodies to the government also provide certain feedback to the government on their situation, and not only provide feedback, but they also can make certain proposals which then are submitted to the government. So the first thing, so the one point is that if there is a disproportionate impact on certain group, like for instance the persons with disabilities, so there is a certain flaw to discuss it and to try to find the remedy. And this also may give a partial answer to certain kind of following the impacts on particular groups. On the other point that I would like to make is that as we mentioned, the austerity measures in the Czech Republic were introduced in particular in years 2011-2012. So it means that actually if there are certain long-term impact of these austerity measures, they are very likely not to be so visible or so to be easy perceived in such a relatively short period of time. And typically, some of the measures were introduced as temporary measures. For instance, the reduction in pensions, with the idea that maybe this wouldn't have the stagnation of the pensions wouldn't have such a devastating impact on the pensioners, because it's just a temporary measure which can then become be renewed in as it was before. So I will then would like to ask my colleague if he has more information on the impact on certain vulnerable groups, and also maybe last remark, there is also we have to always see the social security system as a kind of a very complex whole, because a cut in one benefit may very often not cause that the person is completely without any benefit, but it just may also mean that it may shift, that the person may be then entitled to some different kind of benefit, in particular with regards the benefits which are designed for those who are in need. Then I wanted to try to answer to the question about, if I understood correctly, about the comparison of different work with the same value. To be honest, I am not quite sure that we have. If we do have something, of course we have the principle that there should be a fair remuneration. We do have certain kind of rules for fair remuneration, say for instance within the public administration, within the public sphere, which is quite precise. But maybe we will have to go back to this issue in the next report and to study it more carefully. This issue of the fair remuneration, or the comparison of different work with different value. I think that this is all that I wanted to mention now, and I give the floor back to my colleague.
Thank you for the floor. I will start with the macro impact of the austerity measures, and also one of the last questions concerning the philosophy of human rights approach to material need approach. Yes, we are aware of that. Yeah, the numbers are quite nice. Yeah, but also the government doesn't want to put this the hardship you have mentioned from the scope. So one of the priorities for the next period is to promote social work hand in hand with the social benefits, so that also the social situation, not only the income situation, but the social situation as a whole, will be dealt with by the authorities. So that's also one of the priorities for the next period of this government. On the youth unemployment and the measures, this is quite recent. So we have almost no data to compare and to evaluate the effectiveness. But it was given the priority and this focus also because the youth unemployment has long scarring effects. So also it's part of the prevention of problems in the future. Concerning the impact of the austerity measures on the unemployment, the austerity measures in the social protection perhaps do not have that effect on unemployment as the austerity measures in some maybe public investment, which curbs some, let's say, employment increase. But the main problem in the unemployment and consequently in the social sphere is the whole economical situation, which does not generate jobs, and so that people are staying in the social safety net or outside the labor market. But one of the main drivers of poverty, of falling behind the thresholds of poverty, is the unemployment, long-term unemployment, which I think is the main driving factor. Concerning the ratio of minimum wage and social benefits, the social benefits, there was indexation of so-called living minimum, which is used also for setting the entitlement to the benefits, because some coefficient of this is used as a threshold for some benefits, and also it's being used for the calculation of the amount of the benefits. So there was increase in 2012 by 9%, but the increase of the minimum wage itself by 500 crowns is not that high, but with the taxation changes it is more. I cannot calculate it now at the moment, but it is more because the net wage increased maybe by 1,500 crowns. Well, yeah, and maybe I would like ask to clarification on the last two questions on concerning the migrant workers and informal economy, because I haven't get it in the interpretation. What was exactly the question?
If I may try, I understood the question related to the trade union, that it is in that way whether the migrant workers can be members of the trade unions, and I understand that under the Charter of Fundamental Rights and Liberties, all the employees have the right to have the right to freely associate for the protection of their economic and social rights. So it involves, of course, that the migrant workers can be members of trade unions. But on the other hand, of course, it is another issue to what extent the migrant workers do participate in the trade in the trade unions, and that might be a different issue that we would need we would need more time to answer in detail. Okay, so I would like to ask my colleague if there are another issue that he wants to answer. No, is that?
If that covered all the questions, because it was quite fast, so I don't know whether I have written down all of them, but I try to as far as I know, I try to answer all of them.
Yes, yeah. No, I know now. I discovered there is also one hidden question that was about after all these measures, all these efforts, how much care for family is actually shared by men. I have to say that I was talking about a campaign that will only be started this year, so hopefully there will be some kind of impact of this. But also, I have to admit that there is a very much linked to the certain kind. On the one hand, the accessibility, availability of facilities. On the second, also on certain kind of traditional views, perhaps values in the family. And again, all this also linked with the gender pay gap, because if the families are free to choose whether which of the parents is gonna to stay with the child, then of course most families would opt that the one who has a higher income would stay to be a breadwinner, and the other would stay at home. And in the current situation with the gender pay gap as we have it, so it's very often the rational choice seems to be for the women to stay at home with their offspring. Of course, we now starting also discussing the issues of women who are in a situation that they take care not only for their children but also for their parents, who may be of older age and may need some kind of help. And this is an issue that is, so I would like to say, relatively new. We started to discuss it, and we will have to tackle it and possibly also invent some measures. But the idea definitely is that there should be a burden sharing in the family, and that it's also very good for children if they spend some time with their fathers. And what I could also mention for the past, that there was a project, I think it was in 2010-2011, which was focused on the role of the fathers when upbringing a very small children, and this project was aimed at addressing the fathers and to try to give them certain incentives and certain like to increase their skills to be caretakers. I think that this project was considered to be quite successful, but of course it's somehow that it didn't change the attitudes in the whole society just because of the one project. I think that perhaps it's more promising if there are some other measures taken, like for instance the availability or the bigger availability of the facilities for small children, because this is one of the reasons why the Czech women stay with their kids at home for prolonged periods of time, because one is that there is an option, that there is some income secured for this period of time, but the other is also that very often there is not the facility where they could possibly place their children, with the exception of the last years, because the children have a certain preference if they go already to school. So the last year in the kindergarten, the children usually are accepted. But when we talk about smaller children, that is children say 2-3 years, so then it may be very difficult. And in the last year we had almost about 60,000 of children that were not accepted into kindergarten. So of course this is one of the reasons of certain kind of imbalance as regards the taking care of families of children and of other dependent members of the family. And I think that at this point I can, if possible, I would like to close the responses to the cluster number 2. And may I ask, Mr. Chair, now can I continue with the cluster number 3? Is it? So, yeah. Okay. So, I think that this cluster was opened with an issue that also related to the gender-based violence. So I can continue with this issue. It's true that the domestic violence and the gender-based violence, which are two very quite linked and connected phenomenon, that they were really understood as a very serious problem in the society, well, I would say relatively recently. It's true that that first it was Ministry of the Interior with certain kind of proposing some legislative measures and the Ministry of Justice who started to take care of, and later the Government Council for Equality Between Men and Women started to work on a more systematic basis and proposed the National Action Plan to combat the violence against the gender-based violence and domestic violence. This plan for the domestic violence, as we mentioned in our replies, was first proposed for the period 2011-2014. The government already decided that there will be a follow-up, that there will be another action plan for the past. And the thing is, whether I think that it was a very concrete question whether we achieved something with this action plan. I would say that definitely in the general terms what we did achieve it is increased awareness of the phenomenon of the fact that gender-based violence in the Czech society does exist. We know now more about the phenomenon because some studies and researches were devoted to that. We know that about 90% of those victims of the domestic violence are women. We also know, and this is very worrying phenomenon, that about 80 that if there is a case of domestic or cases of domestic violence, that almost 80% of the children are so witnesses or are involved in this kind of domestic violence in the terms, as I said, of being witness to that. So which is indeed quite a worrying phenomenon. We do within the framework of the National Action Plan, certain measures, of course, have been taken in addition to this kind of awareness raising and knowing the phenomenon. We do have now kind of intervention centers which are in each region, and the intervention centers are able to provide quite well, so to say, speedy help to victims of the domestic violence. And also we have another important investment, and the important issue is that in certain cases there is no other solution than that the victim of the domestic violence at least temporarily find some other housing, so to be protected against such perpetrator. And the Ministry of Labour and Social Work is subsidizing so-called asylum homes with protected address or with no address, so that or secret address, so that the victims, usually female victims of the domestic violence, are really protected. Then what is very interesting, it is the activities of the Ministry of the Interior. The Ministry of the Interior also has a grant program for non-governmental organizations which are involved in the issue of domestic violence, and they for instance in the year 2012 they supported 7 projects by the NGO which targeted not the victims of the domestic violence, but primarily the perpetrators, because they recognize that there is a pressing need not only to work with the victims and to help them, but also somehow to eliminate that this domestic violence and gender-based violence occurs. And therefore, it is also very important to work with the perpetrators, which in most cases are men, but not exclusively. Of course, there are also women who may be perpetrators of domestic violence, in particular in relation to some dependent members of the family, like older persons who are dependent, who may be dependent on their help or care. We also we are also considering, as you might know, there is a new convention that was drafted by the Council of Europe, and the Czech Republic already is considering that it might be possible to sign and possibly also ratify this kind of document, which is the Convention against domestic and gender-based violence. But this is just in preparation. No steps have actually been taken in this regard so far. Also, the gender-based violence is an issue that is studied by non-governmental organizations, some research organization. What was a quite interesting research? It was research conducted in 2012, which focused on the economic impacts of the domestic violence, because we know that it also has some kind of very negative economic impacts both on the victims, but also on the society as such. So, and I would like to stop with the issue of domestic violence, and I would like to ask my colleagues to complete some information, in particular as some statistical information regarding to the acts of domestic violence.
Thank you for the floor. We have the statistic data to the supposed latency of the domestic violence. The number of endangered person in the official statistics evolved from 1,712 in the year 2009 to 3,566 in 2012. So we can conclude that the latency of domestic violence is reducing in the Czech Republic. I would like also to introduce one legal means of protection against domestic violence, and that is the banishment of perpetrators from the common dwelling. The police can ban an abuser from remaining in a common dwelling and its immediate surroundings, or from establishing any contact with the victims of their violence for a period of 10 days. And at the request of the victim, a court may then ban the abuser by an injunction for a period of 1 month, which can be extended up to a year if the victim initiates judicial proceedings. Thank you for the attention.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that we had a number of issues that somehow related to the housing and also to the issue of homelessness. So I would like to ask my colleague from the Ministry for Regional Development to try to cluster all the replies to these issues.
Thank you. Question concerning housing started with a question on the system of social housing. I can inform you that the Czech Republic has supported social housing construction of new social housing. It means housing dwellings aimed only at socially defined target group since 2003. There are several subsidy programs from the state budget as well as from the State Housing Development Fund budget. The first program is aimed at people in need, seniors, minorities, disabled people, etc. And the form of the subsidy is grants, currently available not only for municipalities, also for private investors. Rents are limited. Therefore, this kind of new housing construction is aimed only at households specified in the relevant government decree. Another program is aimed at social housing in general, in rental housing, while at least 2/3 of newly subsidized housing in this program has to be aimed only at socially defined target groups like seniors and others. The Czech Republic also tries to use European funds in favor of housing, in this case in housing of Roma minority. There is a special branch of one of the integrated operational program aimed only at pilot projects consisted in integration projects aimed at living conditions of Roma minority in bigger cities, and the support aimed at housing has to be combined with some other activities in the field of education, job creation, etc. It means it has to be based on an integrated approach. The Czech government came to the conclusion that, as you, Mr. Pillai has mentioned, home ownership was in the center of previous form of state support, and this analysis was one of the reasons why the Czech government in 2011 approved on a new housing strategy. And one of the principles of this new housing strategy is shifting from home ownership to rental sector. Maybe, as you know, in the Czech Republic, at least about one third of all households live in rental form of housing. It means rental housing is very important for the Czech Republic, not only from the point of view of labor mobility, but also from the point of view of social cohesion, affordability, etc. And this new housing strategy stresses the importance of rental housing in general, and proposes and some steps to support rental housing. Another questions in the field of housing concern tenants and possibility and affordability and possible protection against evictions. Rental housing is regulated by the law. In the Czech Republic is a civil code. We have a quite new civil code. Therefore, a tenant is fully protected because there is a taxative list of the reasons for termination of the tenancy. The notice period is at least 3 months, and the notice must be in written and must be delivered. The written notice always has to specify the reasons for termination. Plus, and what is very important, has to include information about the tenant's right to appeal against the notice at the court. The tenant may defend against unjustified notice. There is a time of 2 months to do so. Tenant may also propose to postpone the vacation of a flat if he or she is not in a position to vacate it. For example, if it has especially unfavorable impacts on his or her families. And the Czech Ministry of Regional Development subsidizes Union of Tenants. It's a very important non-governmental organization consisted of tenants, and the aim of this direct financial subsidy is to enable in all bigger cities establish information centers available free of charge for tenants to obtain consultancy, including legal consultancy. And these principles of the Czech legislation concerning the tenancy is fully in accordance with General Comments number 7 concerning evictions. And the Czech Republic, according to the Czech Republic legislation, all persons have security of tenure. Nobody can be removed from the home without legal protection. Adequate legislative measures are in force. This legislation, civil code, as regards the tenancy, include measures which provide security of tenure to occupiers of homes and land, of course. There are control mechanisms under which evictions may be carried out, and no discrimination can be applied according to Anti-Discrimination Act, as has been mentioned several times. Some evictions may be justifiable, such as in the case of persistent non-payment of rent or of damage to rental property, and these are carried out in a manner warranted by law, by civil code. Relevant legislation specifies in detail the precise circumstances in which evictions may be permitted. As regards tenants, adequate of course, reasonable notice is necessary to develop prior to the scheduled date of an eviction, and plus information possibilities has to be provided together with this notice. Final information concerning the social housing. The new government has committed itself to put social housing in a more visible and more higher political level. And in the political program of the new government, there is a strict commitment. The government shall push for a new law on social housing that defines the standard for social dwellings and specifies those in a housing emergency who qualify for such housing. And all these legal preparatory works start now in these weeks and months. I have prepared some written brochures for you. I will pass them to Mr. Chairman for those who would like to be more informed in the field of housing. Thank you.
Okay, if I can ask the colleague to talk more about the homelessness.
Yes, one of the questions was on the number of homeless people and who is most in what groups of people go to homelessness. So according to the methodology ethos, the qualified estimate is to have 30,000 people actually homeless, but in total people with precarious or unsuitable housing, this number is around, it's an estimate, 100,000. And the main factors are of course a history of social exclusion. Others are abuse of substances, for example, or some mental disability or disease. And also quite a large proportion are people leaving institutions or prison, people with some criminal history, etc. So, and also the fastest way to get to homelessness is also when there is indebtedness combined with another factor, for example, disruption of the household, of the family. So then the people also fall to homelessness.
Okay, thank you very much for that information. If I just can complement the information given on the preparation of the new Act of social housing, I would like to say that the Minister for Human Rights is devoted to participate very closely in drafting of this law, so that the human rights perspective is indeed taken into the law. So as already mentioned by Ms. Grab-Milorova, the legislative drafting already started now, but this is a very new issue. I think there was only one meeting of this working group so far, so we hope that we will have some results, say by the end of the year, that we will have some tangible results on the proposal of the new law for social housing. I think that from the issues raised under the cluster number 3, there are a couple of issues that we didn't address so far, and these are issues that in particular relate to the deinstitutionalization of the healthcare, in particular the healthcare of for patients with mental problems. And therefore, I would like to give the floor to our expert, the Deputy Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mrs. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, first of all, I feel very honored and pleased to have an opportunity to speak at such a distinguished forum. Thank you very much for your questions about the reform of psychiatric care. I admit, and this is my personal conviction, that the psychiatric care in our country has been for a long time, I would say, traditional. So there is a new reform, I have it here, there is a new reform of this care that includes deinstitutionalization, whatever, of the care and creation instead of psychiatric clinics often located in remote places, creating of, we call it the centers of mental health, that will be available in the cities that will come closer to the patient than those remote hospitals that I admit we have in a large number. We expect a huge, or we hope for a significant EU support for this project, and this project is really ready to go and is starting in these days. We had several working commissions on this issue, and it's starting in this year of 2014. I don't want to go into details, but I would just read the mission of this reform. The mission of this strategy of reform of psychiatric care is to fulfill human rights of mental ill patients in the broadest possible issue, in the broadest possible terms of this word. So this is to the reform of psychiatric care. We also see a huge increase, about 40% increase between the year 2000 and now in patients who visit on outpatient basis psychiatric clinics or ambulances. I don't think, my personal opinion is that this is not there are more mental illnesses in our country, but I think that the reason is that the people are not afraid, or that they are more willing to go to psychiatrists. And if I connect this issue with another question that is related to psychiatry, which is the suicide rate. I have the numbers here. The suicide rate is deeply decreasing in our country. There are some fluctuations in last year, so there is a small increase between the historical minimum from 2007, that was the number of 1,300 cases per year, to 1,600 cases, I guess, last year. So there is a small fluctuation, but I don't know, probably you cannot see this graph. There is a steep decrease from the 70s, from numbers like 2,600. So we are now somewhere at the half of that. So I admit, and this is true, that high suicide rates are a traditional problem of, let's say, Middle European countries, but probably better psychiatric care, better availability, better drugs for against depression. So I believe that we are doing our best, really, and the numbers can declare this steep decrease in the suicide rate. regarding other questions, there was an important question, and I take this personally. I take this quite seriously. There was a question about medical insurance policies for third country migrants in our country. First of all, I would like to explain who is eligible and who is not eligible for public medical insurance. Third countries, so non-European, non-EU foreigners are eligible for public health insurance if they are permanent residents or if they are employed in the Czech Republic, because then the employer makes the insurance. But who is not eligible are their families. And I consider that this is, I don't know exactly the situation in other European countries in this issue, and I promise that I will focus on this. Also, who are not eligible for public health insurance are those who are not permanent residents and who are unemployed. If I speak in numbers, there is about an estimate of 130,000 of such people in our country, and I understand that let's say this is an important issue, and I definitely want to focus on that. Maybe a little bit to explain this phenomenon. Immigration is quite a new phenomenon in our country. In the past, during communism, people used to escape from our country, so there is again, in the words of numbers, there is a tenfold increase in immigration between 1990 and 2006, up to 438,000 foreigners, which represent about 4.2% living in our country in these days. Just for comparison, our country has about 10 million, or has 10 million, a little bit more than 10 million inhabitants. So. Of course, I understand, or I'm convinced that we can improve something in these insurance policies. But really, I have to say that this is a relatively new phenomenon for us. Another question was about patient rights. Of course, according to our new laws in healthcare system, there is a written informed consent signed by the patient or some legal authority for not only for hospitalization but also for all important examinations, and the patient is free to refuse the signed consent or is free to withdraw his or her consent at any time. The exceptions are infectious diseases such as tuberculosis, and these diseases are listed in special declaration. So this is not any infection disease. And of course, there are involuntary hospitalizations, for instance, in psychiatry, and the court has to decide within 24 hours. Regarding, there was another question dealing with teenage pregnancies, and I take the liberty to disagree with that this is a problem in our country. Out of 130 pregnancies in 2012, there was 108,000 children born, and there was only 121 deliveries at age of 14, which is really absolutely a very small number, and 3,068 deliveries between the age of 15 and 19. But I would be very happy, and I unfortunately I don't have it, if I had better statistics, because I think there is a great difference between the age of 19 and 15. So I would be more happy to see how many pregnancies were at the age of 15, and I would expect that this number was also very low. Compared to the situation in, for instance, in the 70s during communism, the teenage pregnancies rate was about 20,000. So there is a really steep decrease. So I hope, or I at least hope that we really do our best in this issue, and that this is not a important issue anymore. I don't know if if I can conclude my speech now, or if
thank you.
it is
Thank you very much.
something that-
Actually, in fact, this is what I have in my notes.
Yeah, maybe I have just one more regarding, I have almost 3 decades of practice in various hospitals in our country, so I can guarantee that if there is any emergency patient, no one cares about her or his insurance, and the patient gets all necessary help, definitely, and usually all these expenses go to the burden of the hospital. This I can guarantee. This is so.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. If I can just return to one issue that was raised, and maybe it was not 100% understood by at least by me, by myself, and it was a reference in relation to the deinstitutionalization about some other categories of persons, and there was older persons were also mentioned. But I am not indeed aware of some significant problem that would relate to some institutional care of older persons merely because of the fact that they are older. Of course, there is a problem if the persons are not only older, but they are also they also suffer with certain kind of disabilities. But I would say that the mere fact that a person is older, that it doesn't somehow predestine this person to be in any kind of institutional care. The fact is that there is perhaps a certain trend among older persons to seek a new type of accommodation which may be connected with certain kind of services that I provided to them, because of course with the in particular when the persons may be in the 80s, something like that, or maybe in the that they may need some other kind of services, and there are some say providers of this kind of services. So I'm not sure if it's related to that, but at least we are not aware of any worrying phenomenon related to some institutional care of older persons as such. So if my colleagues want to add something on that. Yeah.
Maybe just a few words on the deinstitutionalization itself of the social services. I will just use the DI abbreviation. It's a process as well ongoing as in the health sector, in the social services sector as well. We had some projects financed by the European Social Fund aimed at the transformation of the institutional care. It were pilot projects. Now we are getting to the end to these projects, and the process of DI is to continue further. And we're trying to have the shift from institutional to community care services, and this goes hand in hand to improvement of the social work, which I already mentioned, and also of the social workers. We are now preparing an act or law on social workers, which will set some career principles, including education. And also strategic documents also mention the increase of capacities of the social worker, which are mainly responsibilities by the municipality and regions. Also changes to the financing are being envisaged, so there will be many changes in the years to come aimed at the improvement of the social services sector as even from some fundamental changes, including the financing. So this is also one of the priority issues of our ministry, and just maybe for your information, in 2 weeks we have a workshop organized together with the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights on this very issue of transformation of institutional care, which will take in Prague. So this will also open for all the stakeholders from the non-governmental regions and also from the other public authorities. So this is topic we are paying great attention to.
Mr. Chair, I think that at least from our perspective, we finished the replies to cluster number 3. So
perhaps again we will ask my colleagues whether they have any follow-up questions. Colleagues, as it was said by the distinguished head of delegation, we have now the responses under cluster 3, and the floor is open for any follow-up questions. Yes, Madame Ravenberg.
Thank you, Chair. The private, with regard to the insurance of every of citizens of. We have information that the private health insurance often refuse to insure the so-called insurable persons. And the committee has information of at least one case where a premature baby was born, and the elders they were insured, but no insurance company would insure the newborn baby, and the hospital brought the case to court, and the parents had to pay about 30,000 euro, and the interest cost for court fees. So there is, according to our information, there is a situation where hospitals they pay, where hospitals give ask for patients to pay, vulnerable patients who don't have the money, they bring them to court to pay the money. They are not, they don't have access to medical help. So maybe you could inform us regarding that case. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madame Ravenberg. Any further requests for the floor? I don't recognize anybody. So if I may ask the delegation to respond to this question.
Okay, thank you for this question. It's true that there is a certain number of foreigners who are not eligible for public health insurance, and they must be insured, or the only way how they can be insured is a commercial insurance. These commercial insurance companies are not under authority of Ministry of Health. I don't know about that case of a premature baby. Maybe I would like to know more about that. And I take this very seriously, and I will do my best to get more information, or to proceed with this matter to probably to improve it in the future. But I understand that this may be a problem. Yeah.
Thank you very much for this response. I just wanted to say that I mentioned already that during the 48 hours after our dialogue, well, we are not counting the weekend. The delegation is entitled to submit any supplementary information in writing. So if you would like to do something in this respect, certainly it would be welcomed. But this is, according to your assessment. Now, I think we have finished discussion under cluster 3, and the next cluster and the last one is cluster 4. So I'm again asking the distinguished delegation to provide responses. Thank you.
Thank you. So I would like to start by the issue raised in relation to national minorities, and in particular also the Vietnamese minority was mentioned, and also the status of the National Council for Minorities. So to start with, about the Vietnamese minority, I already mentioned that the Vietnamese minority was the last year was officially, so to say, invited to participate in the Council for National Minorities, and in fact it's the 14th minority that is represented in this Council of national minorities, or it is among the 14 representatives of the national minorities. If we talk very particularly about this Vietnamese minority, it is I think that we talk about minorities, we always have to start talking about history, because each national minority or even a migrant group in the society has its very own and particular history. Speaking about the Vietnamese minority, so it's true that Vietnam is a quite remote country from the perspective of the Czech Republic, but in the past there was something that was common between the Czech Republic and Vietnam, and this was a certain kind of belonging to the same, say, cluster of socialist countries. This also had certain kind of mutual cooperation, mutual assistance, and in particular there was a certain kind of exchange of workers, and also the professional training that was provided for Vietnamese in the Czechoslovakia at that time. So in this period, it was in the 1950s, the first groups of the Vietnamese came to the Czech Republic, and then the Vietnamese in the 80s, there were groups of Vietnamese both as students and also Vietnamese who were as migrant workers, but in the terms that it was not that mainly it was focused on their training, on getting knowledge of some new techniques and perhaps technologies. So in the 1990s, there was a certain population of the Vietnamese minority already in the Czech Republic. It turned out that the Vietnamese minority is very good in adapting to the new circumstances, to the change situation in the Czechoslovakia and then in the Czech Republic. So, and therefore the Vietnamese became one of the prosperous migrant communities in the Czech Republic. They may be both employees, but in particular they run, or at the beginning in the 1990s, then they ran small markets, small supermarkets, groceries, and so on. Now I will jump to the last census of population that was carried out in 2011, and at that time there were more than 29,000 Vietnamese counted in the census, which is not the exact number of persons who live in the Czech Republic, because there are of course certain rules for those who are counted in the census. But the fact is that there is a quite considerable Vietnamese community. Not all of these counted in the census, or I would say that the majority of them don't have the status of citizens, or at least don't have the status of citizens yet. They still live in various status, be it permanent residents or long-term residents. But there is a considerable group already among them who are citizens of the Czech Republic, and therefore, as such, if they express their wish to be recognized as a national minority, so they have the right to be recognized as such, and because they were participating as guests in this Council for National Minorities, and they expressed their firm wish to be invited as members of national representatives of national minorities. So they were invited. In general terms, I would like to say that the Vietnamese minority is considered as a minority that integrates very well in the Czech society. Maybe this is also because the Vietnamese community, at least living in the Czech Republic, put a big emphasis on the education of children, and so the new generation of Vietnamese are well integrated, and they master the Czech language at a very good level. As regards, maybe if I can continue with the Council for National Minorities, because there was a question how this council does work. This Council for National Minorities is actually linked very closely to the law, to the Act of National Minorities that is from 2001. The core of the organization of the Council for National Minorities is laid down in that law. The Council for National Minorities is also considered as a way how the members of the national minorities could participate at decision making and could influence the decision making in the way that they can discuss the issues that relate to their status in the society, and in particular to the very specific minority rights which relate to language rights, rights in the schooling, and so on. The members of the national minorities, at present we have 32. The council has 32 members. Thereof, 18 are the members of the national minorities. There are either one representative of the national minority or two. And it depends not only on how big is the national minority, but also on the fact what is the status of the language of the national minority. So there are representatives of the Belarusian minority, Bulgarian, Croatian, Hungarian, German, Polish, Romish, Roma minority, Ruthenian, Russian minority, Greek minority, Slovak minority, Serbian minority, Ukrainian minority, and Vietnamese minority. So there are 14 minorities. Some of these minorities have two representatives, which are in particular the bigger minorities, like the Polish minority or the Slovak minority. Because we also have a different kind of protection, which is the protection of so-called minority languages, and certain languages are considered as minority languages in the Czech Republic, which is, for instance, the German language, the Polish language, the Slovak language, and the Roma language. So these languages are supported, not only the speakers of those languages, but also the languages as such as a kind of a cultural value and enrichment of the society. The other members of the council are representatives of various ministries and other institutions. For instance, the representative of the office of the president, or also the representative of the public defender of rights, the representatives of the association of counties, of the regions, and also there are representatives of academia. They met several times a year, and as said, they discuss issues of their common concern. They also have their say in distributing the grants among the members of the national minorities. The most popular of which are the grants for the minority press, so that the minority press can be in minority languages or in these languages of the national minorities. Minorities can be issued. The office of the government has a very small grant program which is devoted to the support of the minority languages. That is the Slovak language, the Polish language, the Roma language, and the German language. This Government Council for National Minorities is always headed by the minister. Now this is the Minister for Human Rights. It submits the annual report to the government. We also have as I already mentioned, a very kind of a comprehensive report depicting what is the status of the national minorities, in particular in whole the territory of the Czech Republic, in particular region, in particular villages and municipalities. So it is indeed very traditional, I would say, and quite detailed. I think that perhaps this is all I can say at this point on the issue of national minorities. But if somebody would be interested in even more information, I would like to say that we submit reports which are translated into English, and they are submitted in particular to the Council of Europe, which is the body linked to the framework conventions on the protection of national minorities. So we report very regularly to that committee on the situation of minorities in the Czech Republic. And the second mechanism is the protection that is linked to the Charter of Minority Languages, which is another instrument by the Council of Europe. So I think that perhaps this may be all I wanted to say in brief about the issue of national minorities, minorities in the Czech Republic, and I think that we should now continue with some other issues raised in this last cluster, and well, we can continue this. Yes, I think that then we have to a very a cluster of issues that were actually raised, and they related to the right to education, and there were a lot of issues related to the right of education, or to the right of inclusive education for pupils with disability. Also, there were issues raised in relation to the education of Roma children. So I would like to give the floor to my colleague from the Ministry of Education to try to reply on these issues.
Thank you. Let me introduce you to recent view on inclusive education of the Czech Republic. We would like to ensure that the ministry is working towards the inclusivity. We know that it is problematic, but we are determined, and it will happen. It is in child's best interest not to be just an extra body in the classroom. The child needs individual approach and professional support to reach its maximal personal potential. The inclusivity is about belief, the passionate belief in potential of all students. More than any single factor, the lack of deeply held belief in every child's ability leads to students achieving at levels lower than their potential. Most teachers enter the profession believing that every student can be successful, but only few experienced teachers hold on that belief. We introduced the right of every child to be educated, and recently we introduced the duty of the head teacher to accept every child if parents wish to. If parents insist that the child will come to the school to which it belongs in the municipality, the head teacher must accept the child. There is no excuse in terms of conditions in the school. But still it is problematic because some schools really are not equipped by competencies and by technical equipment to accept every child. And parents have no energy, money, and their child have no time to wait on the decision of a court. So why are not our schools ready? Why we must wait? Why they are still not ready? And what we are doing to prepare them? I would like to say some facts about the quality of our educational system. Schools in the Czech Republic enjoy very high autonomy, but their accountability for learning outcomes is very low. There is no connection between external and internal evaluation system, and socio-economic background of schools is not taken into account. School founders municipalities fail to participate in quality assurance of education. The quality of management and financial management of schools is good, but the competence of head teachers regarding evaluations and of learning outcomes and its application into change management is insufficient. Leadership and change management are not mandatory part of head teacher training. Teacher competence in inclusive education, individualized and personalizing learning, and in diagnosing educational needs are inadequate. It is not only the case of children with special needs, but also children talented and gifted. The share of delayed school entry is high. The main problem is linking the preschool and elementary education. There is only 6 countries of OECD where the GDP, where the percentage of GDP for education is lower than 5%. India, Indonesia, Italy, Slovakia, and also Czech Republic. But we can see some movement. And it can happen. Now in the Czech Republic is at least 70 schools which we call inclusive schools. We set up quite high criteria how to evaluate schools to be inclusive. This is only our internal evaluation criteria. It is not public, but we believe we can go on and introduce this in cooperation with Czech School Inspection in a few years. These schools has grown from projects supported by European Social Fund and other foundations. We have now the period 6 years, 2014 to 2020, when we are ready to do the main changes. We must have clear strategy. We must change the law. We must increase the knowledge and skills for better quality of education. And we must change the attitude. The mind of politicians, administrators, head teachers, and parents and the whole communities for inclusive education. The strategy NAPIF was never fulfilled because it didn't have any financial support. We were able to organize the preparatory phase of NAPIF, and some measures are part of law or legislative changes what we have done already, or changes which we are preparing now. Some measures were part of projects, and long-term measures are now the part of new strategy of educational policy of the Czech Republic till 2020. This strategy is going to be sent to the government in June, and we hope it will be agreed, because it was broadly discussed and consulted last year with the different group of experts, pedagogical faculties, inspections, and teachers. The number one priority in this strategy is to decrease the inequality in education. The strategy is prepared hand in hand with operational program called Research, Development and Education, which brings the money to implement the strategy into practice. We prepared the budget, 1 billion euro, to do the changes to reach more equal access to high quality preschool, elementary and secondary education. In the last 6 years, we spent about 130 million euro on projects for schools, teachers. We educate thousands of teachers. We have new diagnostic tools. We have new methodics. We have new best practice examples. We have new networks, and we are ready to build on it. For the next 6 years, we plan to spend about twice more money, about 300 million euro, concentrated on places and to support children where the need is the highest. It means we will concentrate on municipalities with social excluded localities. We will choose the localities in cooperation with Agency of Social Inclusion, and on these localities we will cooperate with Ministry of Work and Social Affairs. So these localities will be supported from preschool attendance through schooling to employment and housing. Other money will be spent for improvement of the system of counseling, pedagogical, psychological counseling, and to support children in special schools, children with health disabilities. So we will support them to be more open in the community. We will prepare transition programs mainly for children with mental disabilities to help them to go from the school to the work. We have also prepared law changes. The main change is that we prepared a list of supportive measures, and the base of the change is that the money for supportive measures are not going to the school, but the money go after the child. This gives the opportunity to mainstream school to be well equipped and have the right supportive measure for every child. This is the opportunity, but we need to train head teachers and teachers well and open their minds to be ready to do it. I'm not the lawyer, and it is difficult for me to explain all these legal changes, so we can send it to you. We revised diagnostic tools, and we introduced new diagnostic tools. We released a Czech adaptation of foreign tools. So now the diagnostic tool W
ESC is not the only one which we use. It is not used as a main tool, and every counselor is trained how to interpret the results. But the main change what we do need is to change the attitude. We need to publish better good practices, to cooperate, to create learning networks, and cooperate better with media. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you. I think that I can add to this cluster on education one more information, which is very specific, and it relates to the minority schools. I understood that there is some worry related to this school. I have to say that they are in the Czech Republic, that they are very traditional institutions. They are linked to minority rights, but in reality. We have only segment of the Polish of the Polish minority schools. We provided you with the information on the statistics on how many pupils are in this minority schools, where the Polish language is used as the language of instruction, and then of course which is actually on the page 54 of the replies to the list of issues. I have to say that we also do have certain schools, for instance, with the German language instruction, which are not where the instruction is not only in the language, in the minority language, but say that these schools are rather bilingual. I would like to say that in fact we don't see these schools to be any problematic. In fact, all of those who attend these minority schools then are in fact pretty bilingual individuals, because they live in the Czech Republic, and of course they also have classes in the Czech language. So we see these minority schools as some kind of benefit, and it was never linked with any kind of say problems. And to understand the situation with the Polish minority, this is a border minority. There is a border between Czech Republic and Poland, and a part of the population of Polish nationality is simply living in the border region, and therefore they have the right to have the education in the Polish language. There are certain rules for the establishing of minority schools. They are in the legislation on schools, in the School Act. Actually, it's paragraph 14, which sets the preconditions when such school may be arranged. But there is a very important element to that. It is only established when there is the interest by the minorities. There should be certain density of the population, of the minority population. But the second very important element is that actually the minority wishes to have such a minority school. For instance, there were some attempts to have also bilingual school, Czech, Slovak school, and it was not successful because actually there were not enough pupils who would go to the schools. So that was the additional information on the issue of the minority schools. And now I would like to reply to issue that was raised under the Article 15b. Actually, it was the certain dissatisfaction that we didn't provide enough information on the Article 15b. I understand that this is fact, that somehow we really omitted information on the benefits of scientific progress and its application. So we will definitely improve in the future and provide more information, for instance, on the access of internet and issues like that we understood that should be covered by this article. And then there was a very specific issue linked to that, this was about the women and science, the participation by the women in scientific research, which brings me to the broader context of the education sector and women. As we know, this is the segment of education is very traditionally quite segregated. For instance, as regards the teachers in the kindergarten, there are almost virtually no teachers in the kindergarten. Then of course the percentage of male teachers increases with the higher levels of education. We have. But speaking in general, the proportion of women studying at the universities is quite high. Actually, we have 60% of the whole students at the universities are female students, and then we have a 40% of those who study for PhD program or PhD title. The thing, however, is that this relatively nice picture is not so. Is a little bit overshadowed by the fact that there is again some kind of segregation or segmentation, because there are not many women in technical sciences, and also the percentage of the professors at universities, of female professors at the universities, is relatively very low. It's only 14.2%. With the assistant professors, it's only slightly higher than 24%. So there are definitely some gaps that we have to close in the future. As regards the very particular issue about the science and women and researchers, it's true that this issue is actually being discussed quite intensively, because the percentage of the women researchers is very low, which is issue of concern, not only for the society, but also for the women researchers, because the women researchers they have a kind of a, under the auspices, under the roof of the Academy of Sciences, there is an organization, or rather a project, that is called the Contact Center for Women in Science, and this Contact Center is focusing very much on improving the conditions for women researchers, and they were, in fact, in the last year, they were successful in bringing a complaint with the Public Defender of Rights, because they were complaining that the Grant Academy, which is the institution that distributes grants for researchers, they complained about their rules, and they were of the view that these rules are not indeed discriminatory, but somehow disadvantaging the female researchers because of their responsibilities towards child, and the issue related also to the possible breaks in the research projects. And the Public Defender of Rights actually issued his opinion on that, and the Grant Academy decided to change the rules. So there was some kind of a small progress in this area, but definitely this is not the last point, because the number of the women researchers indeed needs to be increased. Again, this is one of the issues that is every year followed very closely in the report on the equality between men and women. So when we will write the next report, so we can include detailed information about female researchers in that report. Now, I think that as regards my notes, so I think that we are almost at the end of this of the issues that were raised. If the members of the delegation agree, is there anybody who wants? Okay, so I think that we share the same opinion that actually we finished our replies to the cluster number 4.
Thank you very much. I recognize Madame Shin in the follow-up round, and then Mr. Marchand Romero and Madame Kong. Madame Shin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the long, detailed explanation about your programs, attitudes, regarding education, inclusive education. I asked one very specific question, whether you have any yearly target of changing the mainstream school into inclusive schools. And if you don't have, don't you think that that's necessary for 5-10-year plan? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'd like to thank the distinguished delegation for the very comprehensive answers that they've given to the questions. I am very satisfied with the information they've provided. In paragraph 10 of the Common Core document, it states that the Roma are those who are most distinguished from the majority of the Czech population in terms of demographics. But it says there are no data or sufficient statistics regarding them because there is no systematic follow-up. I'd like to ask the distinguished delegation why that's the case. Given that they are the largest, most visible group of minorities, why is there no specific follow-up and monitoring of this population? Because according to paragraph 10 of the Common Core document, that's the case. So do you have any instruments in terms of monitoring the status of this minority? And if so, how are they implemented? What actions is the state taking to that end? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now, Madam Kong.
谢谢主席，也谢谢代表团的
Chair, and thank you the replies given by the delegation. I would like to ask a question to provide me more information regarding asylum seekers, the children of asylum seekers, and also children of refugees, how they can receive education in the Czech Republic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Kong. Any further questions, comments? I don't recognize any request for the floor, so, Madam, the floor is yours.
Yes. Thank you very much. If I may start with the question related to the Roma and to the information on the Roma population. Perhaps it would be good to start with with one brief explanation, and this is actually that under the Czech legislation, a person decides freely of his nationality, national belonging or ethnicity, so to say. So it's say up to me if I declare myself that I am Roma or that I am Czech, I am Slovak, I am whatever I wish, and the person is free to declare this obviously at any time he wishes to make such a declaration, or there is any incentive to make such a declaration. One very important point or option to make this declaration is the census, because there is a question included in the census. Actually, it's a couple of questions which may relate to ethnicity. The one question is which asks about what is your ethnicity, what is your, we use the word nationality, but not meaning the citizenship, but meaning the feeling, where do I belong? So, what's your nationality? This question has specific characteristic. First of all, it's not compulsory. Because if the person decides freely of his or her nationality or ethnicity, it also means that he is quite free not to declare any ethnicity, any belonging. So it's one thing that it's not compulsory, and the second is that it's also not exclusive. Actually, it is also important to underline that in these statistical sheets we have or everybody has the option to declare to ethnic belonging. So it means that we don't have only persons who declare certain ethnic belonging, but also those who may declare that they have more say affiliation. But so certain data that we have at our disposal would be that would describe the Roma national minority. They would relate to this census, and if we look at this information from the census, so we have quite exact data about the composition of of the Roma minority. We know what was the percentage of persons who declared that they are of Roma ethnic belonging, which was something like more than 5,000 persons. Then we have also big numbers about of persons who declared that they have a more complex affinity. That means a combination of, for instance, the Moravian and Czech national belonging, or the Slovak and Roma national belonging. But all these persons, that according to this census, the number is lower than 12,000. So we do have certain statistical data, for instance, disaggregated according to the gender, disaggregated according to age composition. But it doesn't really give a picture about the different perspective where we look at Roma, when we consider, when we know that there is that approximately 200,000 persons live in the Czech society who somehow are affiliated with the Roma minority. So it means that, for instance, their ancestors were Roma, in spite of the fact that they don't declare Roma ethnicity and are definitely not obliged to do that. And maybe this lack of a kind of a more comprehensive information relates to this larger group of Roma. Or the Roma minority, speaking in the broader sense. We do. The thing is that we do have certain information. It's not that we don't have information at all, but usually the information is related rather to local communities. So it means to look to neighborhoods, particular groups, local communities. But we don't have some kind of information that would really cover the Roma minority as a whole. If this is something that we have to improve, definitely I think so. That we should also try to get more information on the Roma minority. Perhaps one way would be we will have some more information when the mapping study of the social excluded localities is ready. But it also wouldn't cover everybody, because this study wouldn't cover those Roma who are well integrated in the society, because there would be no reason that they are included in socially excluded neighborhoods or as inhabitants of socially excluded neighborhoods. But I also would like to say that this phenomenon is not unique only for the Roma minority. Yes, there is a huge gap between the number of persons who declare at the census the Roma affiliation and those that may be considered as a Roma because of objective characteristics. But I would say that the gaps exist also with other minorities, for instance the Slovak minority, because people simply tend to assimilate into the majority. So we also can't say that this is completely a negative phenomenon, because on the one hand the person has the right to preserve his affinity, his minority belonging, but he is also free to assimilate. So I think that we can't make any particular judgment about that. The truth is that we need some knowledge, some baseline if we want to achieve certain improvements. And this is in particular as regards, for instance, the educational status of the Roma minority, or the information about their participation in the labor market. And as I said, we do have information, but this information is not comprehensive. It usually doesn't cover the whole territory of the Czech Republic. It would relate to specific, as I said, specific region, or we know that they come from specific researches that had a limited, limited target. There is some progress also on the level of the European Union, because the European Union also is concerned about not having exact data about the Roma minority. So the most reliable information actually now we have, it comes from the 2011, and it's from the research that was carried out by European institutions, in particular the Agency for Fundamental Rights, in cooperation with other institutions like the World Bank. And this was a research that was mapping the situation of the Roma minority in 11 countries. So we have some data which stem from this source, which we consider as very reliable. Well, this was about the about the situation with the Roma, about the demographic statistics and so on. Then there was a specific issue about the children of asylum seekers and their access to education. So I would like to ask my colleague to answer the question.
Those children are educated in mainstream school, and we have some grant programs to support their education, mainly in the Czech language. Tak to asi všechno.
So. Yes, and there was also a specific question related to the activities of the Ministry of Education that was asking about the specific yearly targets as regards the progress in the inclusive in the transformation towards the inclusive education.
Mm-hmm. Like we have the target. After 6 years, and it is to increase the number of inclusive schools up to 1,500. But yearly targets, we don't have it yet. We have the precise plan how to do it. We will use the methodics of Agency of Social Inclusion. It means to create a local strategic educational plan, to get an agreement of municipality as a school founder, and schools, teachers and community, and open, increase quality and accessibility of mainstream school in the area for every child.
Thank you. I think that all the questions were actually answered. Maybe to the issue of the asylum seekers, just to point out to our information replies to the list of issues, where we also try to explain the situation about those persons who may be in the situation of irregular migrants. They also do have access to primary education, but of course this is a different situation because asylum seekers are considered to be legally on the territory only if their asylum claim is rejected. Then they may turn out to be illegal if they don't leave the country, but otherwise, of course, they are legally staying in the territory of the Czech Republic. So I would like to ask Mr. Chair if it's...
Thank you very much, but I have a bad surprise for you. I want also to raise one question, and this is and I am asking only for a very brief answer. But rather, what I'm seeking is not just information, but rather advice, because on many occasions we have asked delegations already for information how, in fact, they are trying to reconcile the fact that everything is getting computerized. In fact, internet is present in the labor area, in culture, in administration, and now there are still people in each society which have, let's call it, more difficulties in access to internet. For example, disadvantaged people, people with disabilities, less educated, elderly, and so on. Whether you have any programs to address this issue in your country, this would be only the question, because this is, I think, now a worldwide challenge, and we are also collecting good practices, so this is why I'm asking about it. Thank you.
If I may ask my colleague from the Ministry of Education if she has some more information on this issue of the internet and access to internet.
Recently, Ministry of Industry and Trade have done the analysis of so-called white and grey places of the Czech Republic. It means municipalities where there is no access to broadband internet. And Czech Republic is going to use European money to improve the situation, so the internet, so everybody has the access to the internet. For the Ministry of Education, it is very important because of
digitalization of education and access to the internet for children in their free time to have access to educational sources.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And just in order to still come back for a moment to what Mr. Marchand Romero was a little bit astonished about that such a big minority of Vietnamese people is in the Czech Republic. I think that the Vietnamese diaspora in general in Eastern and Central Europe is pretty numerous, I would say. And this is also a phenomenon which has accelerated, probably, I don't know how it is in the Czech Republic, but at least in my country during the last, let's say, 2 decades. So if I'm not mistaken now, in Poland we have now, I think, some 60,000 minority of Vietnamese people. So this is, and they are quite well organized. This is what is remarkable. They really want to maintain their culture, their traditions, and this is very admirable, I would say. This is just to share it with our colleague. May I now ask you, the distinguished head of the delegation, to share with us your concluding remarks?
Well, thank you again for giving me the floor. Actually, I perhaps instead of making some concluding remarks, I just would mention very briefly certain, say, not points, but first of all, of course, I would like to thank the members of the committee. I have to say that because we had this break and we could also discuss our with members of our delegation, we really do appreciate the issues raised by the committee, because we understand that actually that all your questions are very well informed, and they are very focused, and I think that it made for us our work easier, and I would say also enriching, because we were understanding what you are talking about. I think that the second point is, so thank you very much for all your efforts. The second point is that we understand that certain issues have been raised here, which we perhaps should bring more, should discuss more deeply once we are back home. Should think about that. I don't want to say that they are unknown to us. For instance, the issue with the health insurance has been discussed for quite a long time, but of course with no any, so to say, tangible results. So we can promise that we try to renew our efforts in various, and it's not the only issue. There are also a couple of other issues that we may bring back home to our, say, ministers, and then we can reflect on that and try to find if certain further improvements are possible. Of course, we will pay more attention to certain issues and certain articles of the covenant that we somehow say neglected, like this Article 15b. So we will supply more information in the next periodic report that we will submit to the government, not to the government, but to your committee. And I think that is all that I wanted to say, and thank you very much again. And the last, also, we would like to thank the interpreters for their work.
Thank you very much, Madam. I would like now to ask our rapporteur, Madam Kong, to take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to the cooperation and the positive attitude to the delegation and head of delegation. Your careful replies make our discussions very fruitful. I hope the delegation can carefully study and follow up the concluding observations, which will be soon passed by our committee, and work together with civil society to promote and protect the social, economic, and cultural rights of your people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Kong. I think that the rapporteur spoke out from the hearts of all members of the committee, thanking you for your very positive attitude to this reporting process. We are probably all struck by the frankness and focused approach to represented both in the report and in the replies to the list of issues, but also during this dialogue. We really value when the delegations are coming to this committee, not only to say how beautiful everything is in the country, but also to tell us where the problems lie. And this is really important. Also, it is educative for the committee because we finally learn from that, and we are building our, let's say, observations, views, doctrine on this sort of information. And when we are getting information put forward in such a frank manner and such a, let's say, comprehensive, detailed manner, this is really helpful to the work of the committee, so we appreciate it very much. Thank you for that. I have to address my special thanks to the head of delegation, Ms. Andrea Barszowa, for kind cooperation conducting this meeting. This was very helpful to me personally, and I also certainly wanted to say that I've been extremely pleased to chair a meeting of this committee with a very friendly neighbor of my country. This is a particular pleasure, of course, and it's nice to be here. Now, we also appreciate very much this representation of various ministries, because this is what is important. We hope that when the various ministries are represented, we are not only receiving, let's say, professionally backed information from each ministry, but also that what has been said here will be forwarded to the ministers directly. So this is, let's say, a mutual advantage. Now, I would like to say that the committee will consider its concluding observations in a private meeting. While we are acting, as you can easily imagine it, on the basis nobody is perfect, everybody is trying. So we are also trying, and we are also trying to come up with some suggestions which, in our view, may be helpful to the state party and may somewhat provide a contribution to your thinking and your policy making. The concluding observations will be adopted at a public meeting of this committee on 23rd May at 3 o'clock in this room. Everybody who would be at that time in Geneva is cordially invited. And this is what I want to say. At the end, I would like to wish the entire delegation rest after this dialogue, because it's a long day for you in particular, especially I would like to wish those members of the delegation who will travel back to Prague, this golden capital of your country, so have a safe and a nice trip home. Well, what I have to say, nashledanou.
Thank you.
A děkuji vám pěkně. Yes, of course, you are right. There is 5 minutes break now, and after 5 minutes, the committee will reconvene in a private meeting. And I can promise my colleagues that we will reconvene not for a very long time. Thank you very much.